She was once called the Queen of Cabaret, the radiant voice that lit up Melbourne's elite lounges and captivated audiences across Australia. But behind the dazzling spotlight and silk gowns, Colleen Hewett was hiding a truth that nearly destroyed her. What if the woman whose songs inspired love and hope was herself trapped in a prison of silence and fear? Long before she found the courage to say the words out loud, she lived in a home where music couldn't drown out the sound of fists. Her voice, so powerful on stage, was stolen behind closed doors. For decades, fans only saw the glamour, the awards, the timeless hits like Day by Day. But they never saw the bruises. They never heard the screams. When Colleen finally spoke out in 2015, she didn't just break her own silence. She shattered the myth that fame protects you, that success keeps you safe. With one haunting song, Shut Up and Let Me Breathe, she turned pain into protest. And the world listened, many for the first time. But why did she wait so long? How could someone so adored, so accomplished, remain invisible in her own suffering? This is the story of a woman who conquered the stage, but spent years defeated in her own living room. A tale of haunting contrast, public triumph, private hell. Today, as we pull back the velvet curtain, you'll see what was never shown in the photos. You'll hear what was buried beneath the melodies. And you'll understand why Colleen Hewett's voice is not just music, it's survival. Colleen Hewett's name shimmered across the Australian entertainment scene like a marquee in gold lights. In the 1970s and early 1980s, she wasn't just a singer, she was a symbol. A vision in satin with a voice that could melt hearts or command silence. She stood at the heart of Australia's golden age of cabaret, where smoky rooms echoed with jazz-infused melodies and an elite crowd leaned in, mesmerized by every note she delivered. Born in Bendigo, Victoria in 1950, Colleen was destined for the stage. Her early years in a working-class family gave her grit, but it was her rare combination of elegance and raw vocal power that propelled her upward. By the time she was in her 20s, she had become a household name, winning the Queen of Pop Award 2 years in a row and landing major roles in musical theater productions like Godspell, where her rendition of Day by Day became a national hit. Her presence was intoxicating. She didn't just sing, she embodied the music, channeling the soul of each lyric as if she had lived 100 lives. And yet, even in her prime, there was always something guarded in her smile, something unspoken lingering behind the glamour. The entertainment industry, in those years, was a man's world. Women were admired, applauded, and adored, but rarely protected. Colleen learned to play the role that fame demanded, gracious, alluring, and composed. The public adored her. The press crowned her. But the truth was more complicated. Beneath the diamonds and ballads, Colleen was beginning to fracture. Her marriages, though discreetly covered by the media, were not fairy tales. One in particular, hidden behind closed doors, became a long and painful ordeal marked by control, fear, and psychological torment. She never spoke about it then. How could she? There were no hashtags, no awareness campaigns, and no safe space for women in the spotlight to reveal their suffering without risking their careers or their dignity. As the years passed, Colleen's public image remained untouched, almost frozen in time. The poised chanteuse, the embodiment of class and resilience. But inside, she was unraveling. Friends noticed she was retreating. Performances became less frequent. When asked, she would smile and cite exhaustion, travel, or personal reflection. No one knew that the silence was not peace, it was survival. This haunting contrast between her public brilliance and private pain would remain concealed for decades. And it's that silence, so long and so loud, that makes her story not just tragic, but terrifyingly relatable for countless women. Because if even a star like Colleen Hewett couldn't speak up, who could? Colleen Hewett's ascent was nothing short of luminous. In the late 1960s, she began singing in local bands, earning a reputation for her sultry tone and magnetic stage presence. By 1970, she joined the musical Godspell, and her interpretation of Day by Day not only stole the show, it climbed the charts, securing her first major hit. She was barely 21. Almost overnight, Colleen became the darling of Australian showbiz. Television programs clamored for her presence. She appeared on The Don Lane Show, Countdown, The Graham Kennedy Show, each appearance solidifying her as a household name. But while others chased trends, Colleen embodied timelessness. Her repertoire moved seamlessly from gospel to pop, musical theater to soul. Her charisma was velvet-lined, her professionalism unshakable. In 1972 and 1973, she was crowned Queen of Pop, a title voted by the people, not industry executives. It was an affirmation not just of her talent, but of her deep connection with audiences. They didn't just admire her, they trusted her. Yet even at the height of fame, Colleen remained grounded. She wasn't one to chase international stardom or relocate to Los Angeles like others did. Australia was home, and she held it close. She toured relentlessly, giving concerts in both grand theaters and humble community halls. The intimacy of her performances, often accompanied by just a piano or small ensemble, created a personal bond few performers could match. Behind the scenes, though, her life was becoming more complicated. She married young, but the relationship quickly soured. Friends noted her growing anxiety. There were whispers of jealousy, of possessiveness, but Colleen brushed them aside. "I'm fine," she would say, always with that half smile. But in truth, she had entered a cycle that would shadow much of her personal life. Brief moments of hope, followed by long periods of emotional isolation. The public never saw the tension. All they saw was the star shimmering under stage lights. By the late 1980s, she had expanded into acting, appearing in popular TV shows like Prisoner and Homicide. She was no longer just a singer, she was a full-fledged entertainer, commanding respect in every medium she touched. But fame, she once admitted, is a cruel shield. It hides you just enough that no one sees you're crying, she would later reflect. As the 1990s unfolded, Colleen began to withdraw from the spotlight. She performed less, citing fatigue and a desire to focus on her family. The media assumed she was enjoying semi-retirement. But behind the veil of rest was a different reality. Colleen was enduring a private battle far more consuming than anything showbiz had ever thrown at her. The man she loved, the one who was supposed to protect her, was the very person who broke her spirit. Yet still, she stayed. For years. The glamorous gowns were packed away, the studio lights went dark, and Colleen, once the voice of a nation, became silent, completely, achingly silent, until one day, she wasn't. It was 2015 when the silence finally broke. Colleen Hewett, now in her 60s, stepped forward, not onto a stage, but into a spotlight far more personal. There were no applause, no orchestrated lights. Just a voice, trembling but unyielding, sharing a truth she had buried for decades. She revealed that she had been the victim of domestic abuse. Not once, not in passing, but repeatedly, over years, in her own home. And worse, no one had known. For those who grew up idolizing her, the revelation was shattering. How could this radiant performer, this symbol of female strength and grace, have suffered in silence while the rest of the country celebrated her voice? But Colleen didn't come forward with tabloid theatrics. She came with a song, "Shut Up and Let Me Breathe." The title said everything. It was raw, haunting, and deeply personal. Not just a track, but a confession, a message to the man who tried to control her and to the world that ignored the warning signs. Her voice trembled with rage, with sorrow, with exhaustion. It was not polished for radio. It was bleeding truth set to melody. In interviews, she opened up about the manipulation, the fear, and the psychological torment. "There were days," she said, "when I didn't think I'd make it through. You think because you're older, you should know better. But abuse doesn't care about wisdom." She admitted to staying longer than she should have, not because she was weak, but because she believed in love, because she hoped it would change, because she was ashamed. For many, her story echoed painfully familiar, but it was her celebrity that made it different. Colleen wasn't just speaking for herself, she was holding up a mirror to an entire culture of silence. "I had to say something," she told ABC News. "If I didn't, who would believe that this happens to women like me?" The media response was electric. Journalists who once covered her chart successes now recounted her survival. Domestic violence groups rallied behind her. Her song became an anthem for women who had no stage to speak from. But not everyone celebrated her bravery. There were skeptics, those who questioned her timing, her intentions. "Why now?" they asked. "Why not then?" As if survival had an expiration date. Colleen didn't flinch. She had been through worse, far worse. Behind the scenes, her story inspired policy discussions about protecting older women in abusive relationships. an often overlooked demographic. She participated in forums, lent her voice to campaigns, and turned her pain into purpose. And yet, beneath the advocacy and attention, there remained a residue of sadness. Not for herself, but for the years lost. The nights spent hiding bruises with makeup. The songs she sang while silently screaming inside. In one interview, her eyes welled up as she recalled performing at a charity gala, smiling through tears just hours after an argument that left her physically shaken. "They called me strong," she said, "but I was just surviving." Perhaps the most haunting part of her revelation was not what she endured, but how long it took her to believe she deserved better. Because the world had always told her she was lucky, that she was loved, that she had it all. But behind closed doors, none of that had protected her. At Aussie Uncovered, we've told many stories of fame, of downfall, of reinvention. But Colleen Hewett's journey leaves a mark that's harder to describe. It lingers, it hurts, and perhaps most importantly, it forces us to look beyond the glitter of celebrity and into the shadows that no spotlight can reach. Colleen was never just a voice. She was a presence. A woman who conquered stages with poise and fire, who moved effortlessly between pop, soul, and theater, earning admiration from both critics and fans. Her contributions to Australian entertainment are undeniable. She gave a soundtrack to a generation, a sense of elegance to an industry often defined by fleeting fame. But what makes her story so profoundly human is not just her talent, it's her silence. The years where she endured torment with no witnesses. The weight of keeping up appearances while enduring something unspeakable. That contrast between who we saw and what she hid is what defines the most powerful kind of tragedy, the invisible kind. There's a cruel irony in how easily the world believed in her strength on stage, but never asked if she was okay off it. When she finally broke her silence, it was not a publicity move, not a comeback strategy. It was a reckoning. A woman reclaiming her voice, not the one we applauded in song, but the one that said, "I was hurt and I survived." In doing so, she expanded her legacy. No longer just a singer, no longer just the queen of pop or cabaret legend. Colleen became a symbol of resistance for women who have spent too long believing their suffering must remain a secret. Some might still reduce her story to a domestic issue, an uncomfortable detour from the music we remember. But we believe her voice now carries more weight than ever. Because behind every ballad, every standing ovation, there was a woman holding back tears no one bothered to see. This channel honors both parts of her story, the star and the survivor. We ask you, those watching now, to reflect on what it means to really know an artist. How many stories like Colleen's remain buried beneath applause? How many women still feel they must sing through the pain in silence? And we want to hear from you. What do you remember most about Colleen Hewett? Did her music touch your life? And now that you know the story behind the songs, does it change the way you hear her voice? Some stories are told in headlines, others in whispers behind locked doors. But Colleen Hewett's story lives somewhere in between, half remembered on vintage vinyl, half rediscovered in a haunting truth she waited a lifetime to share. Her voice still lingers in the airwaves, soft and defiant, reminding us of an era where elegance reigned and ballads meant something. She was the glow of the stage light, the shimmer in a silk dress, the warm hush of a lounge crowd leaning in. But now when we hear her sing Day by Day or Shut Up and Let Me Breathe, we don't just hear notes, we hear wounds. We hear strength. There's something tragically poetic about the way her life unfolded. The voice that once masked her suffering later became the very weapon she used to expose it. And in doing so, Colleen didn't just reclaim her story. She offered a lifeline to others still trapped in theirs. She never asked for sympathy, only understanding. And now, perhaps, we finally understand. As we close this chapter, we don't do so with a sense of finality. Colleen's legacy doesn't end with fame or even with pain. It lives on in every woman who finds the courage to speak, in every audience member who listens a little deeper, in every song that refuses to fade. Because now, you know the secret behind the voice. And some secrets, once revealed, change everything.